The curtain fell on 1985, leaving behind echoes of laughter, unforgettable characters, and a groundbreaking theatrical production that captured the heart of a nation. The overwhelming response to the first Laff-It-Off was nothing short of a cultural phenomenon. The audience's enthusiasm, the community's embrace, and the cast's remarkable performance made it clear this was more than a one-time event. It was the birth of something extraordinary. Welcome to my community. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, I'm pleased that you have joined us. Stay with us as we journey through the laughter, resilience, and the creativity that have kept Laff-It-Off shining brightly for 4 decades. People want to know our happy soul. And so with an unstoppable momentum and a bold vision, the decision was made to carry on in 1986. In this episode, we will discuss the excitement and the determination that fueled Laff-It-Off's second year, exploring how this burgeoning tradition cemented its place as a cornerstone of Barbadian culture.
I think it was what we would call a no-brainer, because having had the success in 1985, we couldn't help but coming back in 1986, and then the audience wanted to know what else we were coming with. You see, the brand of comedy that we did, in those days it was pure improvisation. Huh? We never had a script until opening night. So we had a situation where, you would be rehearsing and changing, again looking for perfection. But I think that overall we were warmly welcomed by the audience, and the type of comedy we did was satire, where we looked at ourselves and had a big laugh. We took the bold decision to start, I wouldn't say attacking, but start focusing on politicians. And believe it or not, they really helped us a lot over the 40 years in developing a lot of our skits, because perhaps I should say this year we've hardly had any time or any cause to write an elaborate script. It was there written for us.
Those first 5 years of Laff-It-Off really set the foundation for not just having fun, but bringing to the Barbadian audience theater that reflected them, yeah? And unfortunately, there's some of us who kind of turn up our nose at that type of theater. I mean, I can imagine Shakespeare in his day doing theater to the masses, you know what I mean? And how that experience could have been based on what we were doing in Laff-It-Off, because we were doing a theater that the audience identified with, and they were part of it from beginning to end, right? The whole thing of slapstick, because it also allowed us to experiment as theater practitioners, right? To experiment with this thing called slapstick, to experiment with different cultural forms within the piece, to use sound, to use movement, and to really have fun. The beauty of it was that it was done at the time in the Daphne Joseph Hackett Theater, which was a more intimate theater. And so we were able to really take an audience on a journey, on a real roller coaster. You had people high-fiving in it. You had people, literally rolling up in the aisles. And I think because of the intimacy of the space, right, we were able to hit the audience harder.
I'm sure that at that time, because of the size of Daphne Joseph Hackett, 200 seats, and the demand was there, so you were running the show up to like 50 productions. That was mammoth.
The crowd started getting bigger, so it meant that we had a limited amount of seating available, which equaled then more performances. So we decided at one point that we had to move to a bigger location. So we moved from 230 to a 400-seat location at St. Gabriel's. And the same thing happened again. The show became more popular as you know, years went by. And then we had a request from one of the staff at Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center. And I hope nobody gets offended by this, but what we discussed was that at the time Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center appeared to the average Barbadian as somewhere beyond them. And the management at Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center thought that bringing Laff-It-Off, which we may be Laff-It-Off Productions Inc., but we still maintain that we are a community group. So bringing a community group to the center would bring a different audience, which in fact it did.
The beauty of the production is the appeal to the Barbadian. It was Barbadian. It spoke to Barbados. It spoke to Barbadian situations. It made fun with, and I want to underline that word with there. We made fun with. We didn't make fun at, right? You should be happy to be mentioned in Laff-It-Off. That's what I always say, you know?
I'll tell you this, Laff-It-Off's great marketing ploy was to advertise in the minibus stand.
From Daphne Joseph Theatre down to the minibus stand was quite close. To try and get the minibus crowd to come from the minibus up to Queen's Park, to get a new audience, or to borrow some of that Calypso tent audience into quote-unquote theatre, because theatre wasn't getting that audience. It was a kind of small, select little group, but we wanted to widen that audience base.
That has been our audience over the 40 years, what we like to call the minibus crowd, okay? And that is evidence because when we were in Queen's Park Theatre, between 10:30 and 10:35, if we didn't finish the show by then, you're likely to have half of your audience because they had to catch the 11 o'clock bus. So which means they had to leave the show, and that happens today still, you know? Not as much as before, because I think more people have cars now, but that was the core of our audience. And we started marketing towards them because they were the ones who were coming to the show and supporting us.
We marketed to Bagayan Lal, if you know that expression, you know, Sampuchendi Dapi. We marketed to everybody. And you know, there might be some people who discover that this is something I want to go and see. And it became almost like that's what you had to do every year.
My friend in London still has a flyer. She happened to be here. And because she's in London, she takes a flyer back and she frames it. So you walk into her house and there is the original flyer behind the frame, and she will not give it up. Marketing ploy designed by Tom Cross and others was that we want everyone to know of this play. At first, when the plays that we did, we would take a bit out in the newspaper, you know, so and such a New Horizons Theatre presents, whatever we called the play at that time, you know, small audience, and come to the Queen's Park Theatre. So what Laff-It-Off did was that, and then distributed their flyers everywhere.
And I think it was quite unique to take flyers into the minibuses to try and get that audience into Laff-It-Off. And I think to some extent we succeeded in that, in widening the audience.
And after a while, you have these little quotations that says there's a Laff-It-Off moment when something stupid or something is funny, peculiar, or funny, ha-ha. You know, you say, you gotta put that in Laff-It-Off, you know? So it became a household name and a cultural phenomenon in the Barbados landscape.
The fun part about that is that the audience came to theatre. So if you go to theatre, you get in there for 8:30 and you're left in around 10:30, because theatre is not theatre. In other words, they reached into the working class grouping that had never stepped their foot inside and were never seen as being welcome inside Queen's Park Theatre. I think that is one of the great contributions of Laff-It-Off. So for the first 3 years or 4 years, we taught the Barbadian audiences, okay, theater begins at 8. No, you do not walk out until the end of the play. And eventually, everyone got on board.
They got to learn that lesson real quick, because then 8 o'clock we start, unless something grave happens, right? And I think it's not only us. I remember working with Dorsey boys. Unfortunately for us, that has maintained. You know, anytime you see Dorsey, still, man, sure, 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock. I remember we were young in theater then, and he would come backstage at 7:30. Stand by. 7:45. And be there playing around. That was the other show, right? So then 5 minutes. So we were on stage just playing around. And then 8 o'clock, the curtains would pull, whoosh, and be diving off, right? You know, but that was it. So even from then and for us, we pride ourselves in getting into the space very early. You know, a classic example this morning, you know, you saying, well, this time, we get in the space at least half hour before. So you can disappear and get into character, and so you may say, oh shoot, I forgot X or Y. You check your props, you check your costume, you're going to drink water, you let go of water, because once you running, you don't got time unless it's intermission, right? So that discipline is important.
But really and truthfully, in those early years, people would show up just in time for 8:30, and the play had begun. So what we would then do, if I remember correctly, is we would have an extended opening because we knew that some members of the audience are walking in around 1:15. So, you know, the opening song would be long, and the first performance would be long, and the second performance, so that by the time the rest of the audience got in there, yes, good day, we could really hit the jokes. But it took a while, but I think Laff-It-Off needs to be credited for that.
Well, for this reason, the 40th anniversary documentary has been produced to ensure that Laff-It-Off receives the recognition and celebration it deserves, cementing its rightful place on the theatrical landscape of Barbados. Meanwhile, Marcia Burrows is being invited to join the cast as Nucina Pollard.
I couldn't believe it. I was not a member of Stage One. It was continuously working with Green Room and probably being seen as being on the other side of things. But to my shock, I was invited. And I was invited to play this character who we never saw. So I didn't have to compete with a character already performed on stage. I had a voice, and she was nuts.
Here I am, December the reigning queen, and in the can find the other, get a new look and a new body, and everybody here get envy me, everybody here get envy me, everybody here get envy me.
I always say I was named my men, and it was very funny, but it was not funny as a female, but I was young and I just got a chance to be on stage.
And then her son, who was John Walcott, he had a disability, and people hid their children at that time. So we presented the fact that here it is, there's somebody in the community who has a disability, this woman's son, but his boundaries were within the shop.
The character that was developed was called Fufu. Originally was this Saisong fella who was Cranston Pollard's stepson. His mother, Marcia Burrows, Miss Nucina Pollard. And he was like, quote unquote, the village idiot and whatnot, right? And he had this broom, not only for sweeping the shop, but that was his partner called Jeanette. You plot Jeanette's hair was with the same broom, and then he every night he adding things on to it. You know, so then, you know, even Shadi would say, and the other would say, like, well, wait, don't put ribbons on it, and stuff like that. And there were a couple of times when he would call for a juicy out of the bar. And there was one moment when it was kind of disgusting. Take it straight, pull it, right? Every night I got the drink, I had a juicy. And then he like, oh, a big ignorant belch, right? But we used to do that at school, having belching competitions. Not burping, belching. That's the Belgian thing. We used to drink Coke and I used to win a lot, you know.
It was a time of learning. It was a time of creativity to begin to create these stories, to create the characters. John Walcott, however, he was the man. who played the many characters.
My Saturday would have started as a folk singer. Ellerslie Folk Chorale, my alma mater. Ellerslie School! You don't know. Right. So in 1981 was Carrie Festa. And I had the privilege of performing with Ellerslie Folk Chorale for Carrie Festa. That was wonderful under Peggy McGarry. And following that, we did a show, I believe it was called, it was either long ago and yesteryear, but it was Ellerslie Folk Chorale in a collaboration with some other artists on song. It was Tony Thompson, it was Winston Farrell, I remember Glenn Roy Strong. Yeah. But during that show, I played, for some reason, 7 characters, right? And after the show, I remember Farrell came and said, John, Tom Cross backstage to see you. I said, Tom Cross? Who's Tom Cross? I don't know him from Adam, but he was the principal of Jamaica School of Drama and da-da-da. So I went and I said, hi, how you doing? He said, yes, you're very good performance, very good performance. I want to work with you sometime. I said, all right. Okay, so the man said, what's that? He said, if he came backstage and told you that, that means you're doing something good.
I watched Jamie Foxx when he did the award-winning role of Ray Charles. And I said, how I wish that I could see John Walker perform a role like that. And what Jamie Foxx did to Ray Charles, John Walker did to Lloyd Erskine Sandiford.
I was adamant too.
Erskine Chef.
Chef? What do you mean, chef?
You're not speaking here tonight.
Okay.
I had the ability somehow to watch people, and I looked for the idiosyncrasies and what's not, and then, like being in school, you know, you're in person, the teachers and thing, and then, you know, everybody scrambled to the seat and then look, there ain't nobody, and then you have around home because the fellas going to beat you, right? So you study them and you look for the little idiosyncrasies and so on. But Sandy used to pause. He would say, I was thinking about, and you pause. But then you exaggerate it a little bit, right? And you kind of break words up where it shouldn't be. You would say a boy, sickle. Which he probably would not say that, right? But to make it funny. But he was relatively easy to impersonate.
New speech. That speech give me bad luck. I ain't saying that. Everybody gone home. You people will do. Y'all will do. I have done nothing wrong. I have been ridiculed ridiculously throughout this entire campaign and before. I have been shunted aside by their own and my own, saying that I should resign. I was never asked, only told. Are these likes dimming or is it my mouth? Anyhow. My vision for Barbados has been prematurely faded. Fibs. I. Excuse me, could someone please turn the lights back up a bit? I need to continue with.
There was one scene, and I remember this distinctly because at the time we had an ambassador, the US ambassador to Barbados. And I've met him several times since he came to that show. And every time he sees me, he bursts out laughing. And he recalls this scene. We had John Walcott playing Sir Erskine Sandiford as Prime Minister of Barbados. And I can't remember who it was came to tell him about a phone call. Mr. Prime Minister, right, something like this, Mr. Prime Minister, we have Manning on the phone. Manning? Is that Fontebelle or Pierhead? You know, you put it into the Barbadian context, but that was the sort of comedy that you could expect from John Walcott, you know, and to a great extent, Wendell Smith. Dry humor.
Fufu as Sandy cemented Laff-It-Off into the Barbadians' minds. In fact, there was a social commentator who said he doesn't know. He had a daily column or a weekly column in one of the newspapers, and he said, I don't know why Prime Minister Sandiford doesn't stop imitating Fufu.
It was something that people looked forward to. And then he was also an amazing Owen Arthur.
When prime ministers change, you have to go and study them. So then, when Arthur became prime minister, he said, I ain't in trouble now. Means you get what I do? I said, I know. So, fortunately for me, I remember another Laff-It-Off member, Carla Springer. You know, their families were quite close. So, it was her birthday, and we went to a particular restaurant. And he said, John, when you coming? I said, what you? And I think we were in rehearsal already. And he came and he sat right down in front of me. So he watching me. I said, sir, you coming to the show? And he said, well, come to the show. Well, he was saying he would like to come as when instead of being prime minister, everybody stiff and all that, right? And he watching. But you know, we spoke what the whole night? Cooking, food. You had to realize that he loved cooking, right? How you would have chicken and you got fowl. Fowl you want to run out in the yard, right? And that meat is going to taste different than the chicken you buy in the supermarket. And Carol said, listen, it's my birthday. Excuse me? It's my birthday. Oh, yeah. And he watching him, you know, taking note. So then he smiled, sat back, and it was done, right? But sometimes you have what you call an out-of-body experience, right? I've heard people mention that. Like when you get to like 25th, 26th show, you just automatic. You just go on stage and the lines just start coming. Although I used to forget my lines a lot too. That's another story for me. And then you become that character or that person, and you feel it. I remember one night playing on the night, and I felt myself going into the audience and watching this man. And I heard a man let go some pit. He said, beep, beep, beep. That's Owen, boy. And that happened that one particular night. Others were close, but that one particular night, you know, like when you do your preparation and what's not, and you, wow, it's giving goose pimples. Let's say as an artist, sometimes you'll find yourself inside the painting. When you start to paint, you find yourself inside of the scene that you're painting. It's a wonderful experience. Remember a good colleague of mine, Ross, I can mention that. He said, son, you end up in painting, man? So those are some of the experiences. Sometimes they're surreal, you know. So you're gonna pinch yourself, and if are you on stage, or are you in a dream, or are you? But it's a wonderful experience, especially when you have lots of times to get it right. Try it, get it right. You know, you experiment. Okay, put the glass there. Come out next night. You say, let me put it a little 2 inches to the left so you can reach it.
People have tells. There are certain things that people do that you can mimic, and when it comes to taking off a personality, John Walcott is the master extraordinaire. And it's to see John in action. Sometimes he gets very quiet and very serious, and he would just be staring at, and I would call the person the victim. And he'd just be looking. Eyes gone to slit. And he's an artist. So, and I mean the artist in the true sense with paintbrush and so on. So he sees beneath layers, and he's incredible to watch. I remember one night after a show, we went to Oyston's, and there was this dear old man who was eating his dinner, and I was watching him, and I realized John hadn't seen him, and I kicked John onto the table. And I just slid my eyes like this, you know, not to make it too obvious. And John just looked across, and then he sat forward. And I thought, yes! And within about 2 weeks or so, Father Toothless was born. Oh my goodness. Listen, and he had such a wicked sense of humor. He would put in little things during the production to make us laugh. And it was, Father Toothless was, oh, yeah. How he got his mouth, listen, and the teeth, he would pretend that the teeth were falling out. And the audience loved it, because what they also loved was when we would lose our concentration, which we're not supposed to, you know.
I don't think they got any vocabulary or any thespian vocabulary that could tell you where is John Walcott this do. I have seen John Walcott. John Walcott created the Safuki, which was a Suzuki that he built, and being fufu, it was the Safuki. What John Walcott did, because it was both a physical, of course guided by the beautiful style of Tom's directing, but what John Walcott did in that episode, and in other episodes, I've seen John physically create characters. When I say physically, do things to his body, do to his features, do things that, I don't know what style. Somebody may be able to tell me it is mask, is comedy dell'arte, it is, you know, Grotowskian. Somebody might even go as far as saying it's a borderline Stanislavski, because he gets so involved in the method, but it is a method of madness. It is a method of, but sheer beauty.
Celebrating the character of John Walcott and others who over the years brought comedy and joy to Barbadians through their outstanding work with Laff-It-Off. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. This has been My Community. The series continues next week at the same time.